All right, good morning. Good morning, good morning. Thank you all for joining. This is D&H's first annual Southwest Conference. What a great place to be. We appreciate you guys all showing up early this morning, and we're looking forward to a great day. It's just starting, right? We are super happy to be here because we have some really great speakers in line. So I'm sure you all have access to the agenda, but you know that after this, we have HP, Cisco, and Microsoft. And if you're looking to understand a little bit more about the cloud business, we also have Jason Bystrack, who's going to be speaking this afternoon, and you'll meet him later on in this session. And he's going to be talking a little bit about how to build the cloud practice and how our cloud business unit is being evolved to address all the needs that you guys have. And besides that, we also have an amazing Keynote Jay Baer this afternoon. And he's a great mix of entertainment and business savvy. If you have not seen him speak, you can't miss it. I think the last time we had him in our office, he did a striptease, but he did keep his pants on, so that's good. You have to see that. And I'm sure that you're also looking forward to seeing somebody else, because I can tell you the number one question that I've been asked today over and over again is, where do we go to see Smith, right? So literally somebody stops and asks quite, I'm like, you're looking for Smith. I know, he's here. And so if you didn't know that, Smith is in the building, and he's going to be on stage with Jay Baer and talking a little bit about his business, because he is an amazing businessman, and hopefully shedding some light on kind of where he's been evolved from a business practitioner. And more than that, I think we're here for a great speaker. I am pleased to announce that our morning speaker is Tommy Wald. He's the president of TW Tech Ventures and author of the MSP CEO, Your Guide to Building a Successful MSP Business, and the book that really provides the best practices and ideas for IT service providers evolving as a managed service provider, or MSP, right? He's the CEO of a regional IT managed services and cloud provider. He was. And he has significant experience relevant to the evolving business models, M&A, performance management optimization, staffing, and sustainable business practices. He's a veteran and pioneer, and that's nothing to do with your age, right? But you've been in the industry a long time, and you helped a lot of us build the practice, and also both from a channel and distribution perspective, understand how to deliver services to those that are looking to the MSP business. Today, he consults with many of the channel vendors, ourselves in distribution, and a lot of the partners in working and building partner communities. His approach to is best practices in financial management of top-performing MSPs with a focus on next-generation business models. So please join me in welcoming Tommy Wald.
Thank you, Jennifer. Well, good morning, y'all. How are y'all today? As you said, my name's Tommy Wald. I'm a former MSP business owner and also a veteran of the IT industry, as I started my business back in 1993. And I'm also author, as she mentioned, of this 5-star rated book on Amazon. So all my reviews, both of them, have 5 stars. And we're going to use this book as discussion for moving forward and talking about evolving strategies for MSP. Next. So really, this is not a book whereby I tell you about how I went about building my business, because that wouldn't work for today. It's really changed a lot. This is really a book that discusses what the MSP owner should be focused on today as they're growing their business. And it's not just me telling you how to do it, but also 18 other MSP industry experts that I've reached out to that contributed to this book, that are industry experts, financial, sales consultants, journalists, and other very successful MSP business owners. And throughout this presentation, I'm going to be using quotes, excerpts, and anecdotes from all these various experts. So you're going to be hearing not just from me, but some of the best of the whole industry. So here we go. Make sure I get, whoops, there we go. This book covers a lot of ground and topics and stuff that are relevant for MSPs today. But first of all, before we get started too far, I want to take a survey to get an idea of who our audience is here. So for those of you who consider yourself to be an IT service provider, an MSP, this question is for you. And if you have 30 employees or more, full-time employees, I'd like to see you raise your hand in a group. All right. How about 15 to 30 that's in your organization? See you raise a hand. That is a few. How about fewer than 15? Let's see the hands. So I suspect that's probably a large majority because that's really what we're seeing out there in the industry in terms of the makeup of MSPs and the size of them and such. And so, next slide, please. So while each of these topics here can certainly spend a full hour on each of them for sure, today we're just going to touch on several of them that I feel are really more important and extremely relevant to those of you that are smaller and looking to evolve your MSP or your IT service provider and becoming an MSP. So, but first of all, what is an MSP? We're going to very quickly what it is, so that way we're going to make certain we're all on the same page. Next slide. The key premise of the MSP business model is really monthly recurring revenue, or MRR, as we call it. And this is what's driving so many additional competitors into this market. And there's more service providers out there today saying, me too, than ever before, right? You're probably seeing it. And MRR is like the holy grail of all IT providers today. Subscription revenue, recurring revenue, whatever you want to call it. You know, that's what every business model now is transitioning towards. And over the years, the MSP model has evolved and matured. And as Michael George here notes, you know, the way we go about staffing has changed as well. You know, for example, outsourcing of our NOC and our help desk today is really considered to be a best practice even. And there's really never been a lower barrier to entry than there is today for getting into MSP either, right? So back in the day when I was doing it, I had to spend $30,000, $60,000 or some other large capital investment just to get access to the tools. And today, all of that's just as a service. And so that leads us into discussion about what a next-generation MSP is, because you hear it floated around, you hear people talking about it. And so we're going to talk about what a next-generation MSP is. Next slide, please. And what does that mean? And really, it means that you're always reviewing your offerings and constantly aligning them with your clients' needs and future needs. And all this certainly leads to higher value offerings, which in turn produces stronger growth and profits. So that's why we talk about next generation MSP, because in today's market space and to compete, you have to continually be evolving and aligning your offerings, you know, with the customer's interests. Everybody here familiar with Paul Dipple or service leadership? You know, he's like the financial guru in our industry. So a lot of the standards and things they produce from SLI is the gold standard today. But, you know, he talks about next-gen MSP being one that now is more about being a service business than it is a technology business. And this requires us to have a different conversation with our clients and prospects, right? And we have to learn to sell higher into the IT value stack. You know, we have to talk more about the business workflow rather than more about infrastructure support. And as Scott points out here as well, you know, this really certainly leads to stronger growth and higher margins. And Scott Gomel is a previous MSP business owner, now a consultant with a partner in his firm, and one of the most shrewd financial MSP business owners I've ever met. And Ted Swanson, you know, of course, he's stating, but everybody knows it's no secret that AWS and Azure is certainly playing a pivotal role in how MSPs are evolving their business today, right? Everybody here familiar with Channel E to E, Joe Panettiere? You know, if you're not subscribed to their newsletter or hit their site, I highly recommend you do. You'll get a lot of good information. Joe is our industry's leading analyst. And as he points out, you know, the next-gen MSP is really more of a total service provider, or what he's calling a TSP, that will understand and take care of all of our clients' technology needs. We'll also hear of Gary Pica, True Methods. You know, great MSP sales consulting stuff there. And of course, he's preaching today on how important it is to have a focus on business outcomes instead of technology. Because over the years, that's really what we've been comfortable with and talking about, right? We're all technologists by trade, and so we tend to have these technology conversations. But really, you want to be focusing more on the business outcomes of it. A good example of this may be providing your clients with their technology roadmap, which has all their budgets quarter by quarter, which tells them how their upgrades are going to go with all their line of business applications and such. So there's simple things you can do like that in order to have business discussions that are not necessarily technology driven. Not only will our discussion with our clients change, but also on how we staff our business moving forward. And I agree with Michael George here in that the emphasis of staffing is really going to be moved more towards business and sales executives, that know technology and then are supported by pre-sales engineers and such. But that's really what you're seeing more MSP moving more towards there, is that business side of consulting and sales side. And of course, security, as Ted is pointing out here, will be paramount to everything we do. And as a smaller IT service provider, it's sometimes very difficult to have access to these top security professionals. You just can't hire a guy that's $150,000, $200,000 and expect him to come in and run your security practice. That's why it's a great opportunity to go out and partner. This is where you'd want to go out and partner with an MSP, a master MSP, or some other partner vendor that's going to backfill that particular security need. But the whole being is that all your discussions moving forward, as it pertains to IT, is going to have some form of security wrapped around it, right? Let's talk about operational maturity now, because this is where I believe most of us get stuck in being able to move our business forward. First of all, quick definition of operational maturity. It's basically what your overall sophistication and how you go about service delivery, your sales, your back office, and all your financials. And why is operational maturity so important? Well, it's key to achieving the strong sales growth and profits, as well as the overall valuation of your company. And I think that's something we all want. But operational maturity is the key thing that's going to get you there as it pertains to the sales growth and overall valuation. In my book, I talk a lot about operational maturity, and I refer to Service Leadership's definition of it, and I talk about how they've gone about defining operational maturity now as operational maturity level. And that's basically a score on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being the most sophisticated, most profitable, and strong growth MSPs in the industry. Most MSPs today fall somewhere from a 2 or a 3. So our focus wants to be moving that up the ladder on up towards the 4s and the 5s. And as Paul notes here, there are 36 different traits that SLI measures to derive your OML score. And as I mentioned, these guys have done a fabulous job in quantifying it and putting together the scorecard and helping us understand what are those drivers that really drive operational maturity. But while SLI's model is very detailed, next slide, please. Yeah. And while SLI's model is certainly very detailed and precise, you can pretty much sum it up with this slide right here. And I believe it is in order of importance, providing, such that where everything is built upon the other. So, for example, we all know it begins with the culture, the core values. It all begins with the people. You can't build a company unless you have great people. And you've got to build on these all the way up. And I've seen some MSP business owners, and I've done this once before myself. I'll go up here and I say, I'm going to go off and develop a vertical specialization. And so the owner goes off, he has this really great initiative, rolls it out, there's a lot of energy around it, a lot of movement, but after about 2 or 3 months, it starts to sputter out, dies on the vine, and it never gets accomplished. And it's because they took off on trying to develop that without having something like the delegation accountability. Because you can't go off and create vertical specialization unless your organization has the aspect of delegation accountability in it. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that as we move forward here. Operational maturity is also driven by stuff like processes, job descriptions, getting the right people on the bus. We've all heard that. Ted states that you must learn to delegate and have a structure to support delegating in order to achieve operational maturity. In my world, I was always looking for things I could stop doing every day. How can I delegate? And that's really kind of sometimes a difficult thing for us as business owners to let go of. but just know and understand that delegation and accountability in the organization is just really crucial in order to be able to accomplish the things that you're going to want to in the terms of growth. And as I mentioned, it all gets back to people. Adam is right. If you don't have the right people, you have no chance of success. And years ago, people would tell me, Tommy, boy, you sure got a great technology company. But I would correct them. I'd say, no, I've got a great people company. And I think you all would agree that that's really what this business has come down to today. Another key hallmark of operational maturity is always driving efficiencies and automation into your business. Steve Bowser here, suggests having a dedicated resource for this. And Steve Bowser has been the peer group facilitator for True Profit groups for years and years. I was a member of it, Gary Pica, many others that you know of and heard of and done very, very well in our industry. So Steve has facilitated dozens of these most successful and profitable MSPs in the industry. So when he says things like this, you pay attention. When people like that give you advice and tell you where to focus, these are guys that are on the front row and can tell you what works exactly and what doesn't work. So knowing that all clients are not a good fit is really hard for a lot of MSP business owners to accept, right? Because sometimes, we try to take a square box and put it into the round circle, right? And that means that, we're trying to take on a client who doesn't adhere to our standards, who wants a different type of support plan than the others, or they have some kind of technology that's new to us. And we just have to, at that point, say, we can't bring that on. This can be destructive to your business. And not only that, but you have to look at your existing client base and fire those clients that are not a right fit. Because the whole idea is really getting into a model and a standard here that everybody's singing out of the same songbook on the same page, and you're able to optimize your service offerings. And that's why when you have clients that are not a good fit, they hold you back, they drag you down. And you'll find that when you start firing a client, like in my world, I had a really large client, but he was eating up all sorts of back cycles in our business. And I finally made the determination, I got to fire him. I hate losing the revenue, but we're going to fire him. The day I fired him, there's this total sigh of relief across the company. I'm wondering, okay, how am I going to make up for this $10,000 service account? But what's happened is I freed up all these resources, the back office and everything, such to where they were able to go out and really service those customers that were a good fit, with higher margins, with less stress, and such like that. So, every MSP that has ever gone through this transition has had to do this. And so it's not as scary as it sounds. You do have to trust yourself, but believe me, that's one of the key aspects that you see of MSPs today in order to be able to get customers that are a right fit for them. Next, we're going to talk about differentiating your offerings. And this is one of the most important chapters, I believe, in the book. Well, first of all, raise your hand if your company provides any of these services. Let's see. And I would tell you, if you look around, almost everybody does. And so it's easy to see how it is getting more difficult for a prospect to know the difference between you and others, because everybody is saying, me too, right? And by the way, if you go to their websites, most MSPs are all promoting the same service offerings. They're speaking of the same great customer service, and they're all bundling and pricing their services in the same frame and fashion, right? And I talk to dozens MSP business owners, and I always like to ask them this one key question. I ask them, what do you see as your most competitive advantage? And almost always they say, oh, we give great customer service. Our customers just love us. That's really our differentiator. Well, everybody's saying the same thing. Everybody's giving great customer service. And in fact, it's not a differentiator today, it's just table stakes. If you don't have great customer service, you're not going to be able to stay in the game at all anyway. So that is not necessarily a differentiator. As Scott points out, the market is getting saturated with MSPs racing into the market. So it's really more important than ever that we are able to differentiate. And Joe Panettiere suggest, Why is it so important to have differentiated offerings? And again, Joe is one of these guys that's had the front row seat to every merger acquisition of MSP in this industry for years, has talked to, hundreds of MSP business owners, had access to a lot of confidential information and data and such like that. He's given you here are 5 very good reasons why you should go out and differentiate. So again, this is advice from some of the industry's best, and I couldn't agree with him more. Who all familiar with MSP 501 know what that is? It's basically a survey of the top 501 MSPs in North America. And one of their more recent surveys came out and said, well, there's only 22% offer no vertical market on MSP 501. Said another way, 78% of the top MSPs in North America have a vertical specialty or focus. Why? It's because vertical specific solutions offer a higher margin, and they tend to be more replicable, rinse, wash, and repeat, and streamlined. So that's why differentiation, verticalization has become an increasingly more and more important topic. So you say, okay, well, how do I go about and find my niche? So I'm going to start off with a quick story about a client of mine, Brian Terrell, GPL Technologies. When I met him, he was like 10, maybe 12 employees, operating out of North LA, pretty much kind of shooting at everything that moves and getting customers on and just, trying to figure it out. What Brian did, he noticed that there's this preponderance of customers he had that were all film studios. Being in Northern LA, that makes sense. And he started really learning what their business is, how they buy, what are their needs, et cetera, like that. And he finds out, hey, movies, so first of all, film studio today is where they do all the final production for the movies. They shoot the movie for, 6 or 12 months, and then for the next 2 or 3 years, it goes into a film studio where they add the CGI, the graphics, the music, et cetera, like that. And so they had these graphic artists, very expensive, that are generating, lots of digital data there. Well, what Brian learned, of course, is that each one of these movies are an LLC in itself, and they don't want to own assets. But yet here they're working and creating all this data. So they don't want to own computer equipment, so he rents them storage. And now they don't just need terabytes of storage, they need petabytes of storage that he's renting them. But that's part of their business model, that they didn't want to have that on their books. He tried to sell them managed services. No, we don't want to do managed services. But, we will buy $5,000, $10,000 in prepaid support agreements every month. And so when you look at his realization rate of his labor, outshines most of the normal MSPs because, he's not giving them a support plan at a discounted rate. He's charging full boat on that, right? Because he's got a specialization. He learned the business very well. He learned that these, how to do the pipeline filtering. So these graphic artists and stuff could be really productive and no latency and the data was secure and such. And so he's created himself a really, really fine business around this one specialty to where no one else can move them. Everybody else will come in and say, well, we can do what he does, just cheaper. And they look at him and they say, no, you don't know my business, and I don't mind paying a premium to have someone, manage my IT. And you have many, many, many businesses out there that all have that same thought. They don't want to go cheap on IT. They want to have the confidence in knowing that someone knows their business. And the differentiator here is that Brian knows their business, their workflow, all the elements around their business way better than any of his competitors do. So how would you go about doing this now? I talked about how Brian did. Joe P. again suggests, hey, once you get outside your comfort zone, go out there and attend non-MSP, non-IT events, right? Go out there and get engaged with your end user groups, Go hang out with accountants, go hang out with the lawyers, go hang out with the dentists. These are some things that he's in order to be able to really understand the business, get to know that, get to understand their workflow, get to understand what all their solutions and all their needs are as well. Scott shares a couple of ideas on developing a vertical. So he says, hey, if you're going to do education, think about these things. Hey, if you're going to do community banks, think about these things. Now, none of these other things he's talking about have anything to do with IT. You know, it's all around the business of running those particular, niches there. And I've observed in my discussions with all the ISP, MSPs and IT service providers is that majority of all of you, regardless of how small you are, all have an ability to create a vertical niche. And if you look at your own business, you'll find that you probably have a preponderance of some clients within the same vertical industry, and you've learned their workflow and all their business and stuff over the years just through the tribal knowledge of supporting it. The biggest difference is you just haven't called it out. You're not promoting it. You're not marketing it. You're not trying to formalize it or create a niche out of it there. And it's really not because you don't have the skills to do it. It's because, you lack the focus or maybe even the confidence to do that. And so, as Brian again talks about, gosh, when you master this vertical, they're calling you for advice. They're seeking you out. Boy, what a great position to be in when you've got that, right? And I had that going on in my world when I had my IT company. I focused on legal. And I went out and sponsored the local association of legal administrators. This is where all the office administrators hung out that made all the decisions for IT and stuff. And great customer service, sponsoring everything they had out there and had great relationships with them. And these guys, have this little back forum thing to where they're talking with each other. I don't know it, but the one of them says, hey, my IT guy sucks. Who do you use? And so we use Riata. We're really happy with them. Next thing you know, my phone's ringing. I get this referral. And what's the best kind of lead you can get, folks? Referrals. Thank you. That's the highest close ratio of anything you can get. That's part of what we call influence marketing too today that we've got to be, and we'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later as well. And basically, many vertical specialist companies are boutique providers, which means they may have fewer employees, but they have outsized profits. And that's where I submit many of you want to be. You don't have to get to 30 or 40 or 50 people. You can leapfrog other competitors, but it's about focusing on something like this. Whoops, back one, please. And as Joe P. points out, developing a vertical specialty is not a part-time job. You got to have someone to own it. It's a full-time effort with dedicated and committed people in order to be successful. So I'm not standing up here and saying it's easy either. It is an effort, but there is a process and there is an effort that's underway to get you there. And when you get there, it's well worth it. So now we're going to talk about the business development engine real quickly because, this basically, what I call the BDE, refers to all aspects of revenue generation, which includes new sales, marketing, account development, such like that. So when you hear me say BDE, it's business development engine. And I absolutely think this is one of the most important aspects of the company because it's what keeps the company going. It's a lot better to move from having not enough sales to having too much sales and then being able to figure out how to staff it. Wouldn't you agree? And believe me, folks, I've been on both sides of this coin. And I can stand there before you, I can tell you it's much better to have that latter problem of having, too many sales and not figuring out how to, and not having the staff. Because for one, if you're not having enough sales, that says you're in a dying business. Your business is going backwards. If you have too many sales and you're not able to keep up with, that's a good sign. You're a growing business. Like I said, it's not easy. You may be trading out problems for one or the other, but the better problem to have is I've got way too many sales and not enough people. And when we get to that point, I would push my onboarding from 2 weeks out to 4 weeks out to 6 weeks out so I could keep that business in the pipeline. The key to successful BDE, begins with having a sales-first culture, which is really an attitude. It's a mindset. It's, you're prioritizing sales in your business. And it's really more important than ever today to drive new sales in our business because our business model is, in fact, changing. We've gone from doing all these projects, professional services on the front end, and now we're selling them into these cloud solutions and stuff. And guess what? That gross margin that you're accustomed to getting to on those projects now has really declined. So we have to sell more than ever if you're moving into this model in order to be able to meet the gross margin requirements, just to meet our operating expenses and our target market. Okay, who all seen the Gartner stat before here? This has been out for a while, but it's never been truer than ever today in that if someone is looking for a new IT service provider, They're going to conduct over 80% of their research on their own before they pick up the phone, call you, or contact you. And this just emphasizes why marketing has become so much more important. And you think about it. Next slide, please. Think about how you personally go about searching for a new product or service, right? And it's no different than any of your prospects that are seeking for an IT service. So, you pay attention to your website. Your website is your storefront. That's so true. If you go out to the websites and you're out there looking for some new service or product and you hit a website that's not up to date, the blogs are out of date, doesn't have a contemporary feel to it, you're going to pass and move on, right? I mean, that's just the way we are. It's just human psychology. It's behavior. You got to pay attention to this. And it's not a big fix. It's not expensive either, folks. This is just paying attention to details. I get a lot of pushback on this one because I always say, it's the principal, the owner, key business executive that's got to own this effort. And the reason I get the pushback, because many of us, like myself, I'm going to have a degree in accounting and computers, right? I never did any sales. I never had to achieve a quota at all, except in some drinking contest. But, the whole idea is that, you've got technical founders that are uncomfortable with saying, I'm not a salesperson, all right? I got that. But put you in front of a prospect, you can talk about your company, you can say how you deliver service, and that's how you sell. And what you really need is having all the support structure around you to get you to that point where you can have that conversation. And so that's what a BDE will help you provide. And because it's got to be driven by the principal, that's why, it stays at sales first. You got to have a mindset. You got to have a priority on it. And then build the structure around you to support you on that. Another good thing of BDE is that, as Gary Pico points out, is to have a good sales process. Because a good sales process is, in itself, a differentiator. Gary does a great job about this and talking about his sales process, and just recently started talking about planting landmines out there in the sales process to where when the competitor trips across this, blows them up and out of the competition because they don't know how to respond. So sales process is really effective. For example, in Evergreen, one of my clients here, you go to the next slide, please. Evergreen Services Group, one of my clients, a private equity-backed company that's been going out inquiring probably as many MSPs as I've seen over the last year and a half or so. Lots of them. And so they're kicking a lot of tires, looking under the hood at a lot of MSPs, having a lot of discussions, and what they're coming back with saying that majority of them MSPs do not have a sales process. They tend to just turn their sales team loose and expect to get results. And that's not a sales process. Some of us may be lucky enough to have a rock star salesperson that just goes out, entertains, takes them to golf and things like that and kind of gets the job done. But that's not a sales process. So a sales process is really, I think, a key differentiator, again, when you get into the discussion with your clients. Account management is really important, getting back again to Brian, where he talks about, gosh, it's not just the new sale and the managed services that he's doing now. It's all these, upsell, cross-sell opportunities he's getting into. And in my world, for every dollar of MSP I had another 50 to 75 cents in product and another anywhere 25 to 50 cents in professional services that went along with that. And granted, we're not maybe doing quite as much product today, but there is a lot of product. Somebody's selling it to them. It might as well be you. And you sell it at 20 points. If not, well, then they go down to Best Buy or whatever they want to do and get it themselves, right? But there's money on the table there. And this is the type of thing that would make a difference between having a good month and a great month. So account management is a key issue there for a lot. Steve Bowser, again, one of my heroes of the MSP industry. But he has some really good tips here for everybody. Dedicated recurring revenue, strong business influencer model. And here, this one, non or low commission sales model. You kind of have to rethink that one, but basically, you're expecting people to go out and sell managed services, doing account management, things like that, and you're not paying outrageous commissions as much today anymore, and as much you are a good salary, having a good professional person out there doing it. Lastly here, we're going to talk about building your vendor stack. While this topic may not sound as much fun, it's certainly instrumental in the development of all MSPs today. So I say choose your vendors wisely, and I talk about this more in my book, and I also write some blogs on it because it is so important. But just know that these are some of the top reasons of why we should choose our vendors so wisely. And it's really easy to get caught up in the marketing hype and glitz of all these vendor solutions and stuff, right? But it's really important as you're selecting your vendors to understand the needs of your customers first. And so, don't go out and sign up a Mercedes dealership when really all your customers are really mostly looking for a Honda, Of course, there's many things to consider, when you're choosing a vendor stack. Each one impacts your business in a very different way. And that's why I recommend you have a formal review as you're considering your vendors, looking through this. Maybe you need to stir the pot a little bit more, but really ensure that all these aspects here are configured, are considered. And of course, you can build your vendor stack with D&H. That's why you're here today, to partner with someone. And D&H is taking all the hard work out of it, by the way, for you, because they had gone out and curated a lot of these providers that fit very well for your business model, for your type of clients. They're not out there trying to say, hey, go out and sell this Mercedes. They've got the Honda there for the people that really look for the Honda. But basically, they've got, a good selection of other vendors that they've partnered with and know that work well with MSP and what you're moving toward today. So anyway, that wraps it up today. If you want to hear more about this or learn any more, I suggest you pick up the book. And of course, we've got the book copies will be handed to you as you walk out the door. So with that said, thank you very much. Good luck.